Hello and welcome to your Hammers Chat preview of Brighton and Hove Albion against West Ham United. Tonight's host is Gio and he'll be joined by Gonzo as always, and we've got Mike from Mike on Mondays with us tonight. Bear with us for 5 seconds and we'll be right with you. Hello and welcome to Talk a Good Game. Last weekend West Ham, it was the result that people maybe expected. It wasn't the eyebrow raiser. However, Brighton and Hove Albion was exactly that. A 3-0 victory away to Watford to kickstart their season under their new manager. Gonzo, what's your thoughts on Brighton and Hove Albion?
Well, they've completely changed their philosophy. Completely changed their manager, who in turn has changed the philosophy. They've gone from a pragmatic style under Chris Hughton to probably the first of the conveyor belt of young English British managers that the FA hoped would come through as a result of St George's Park. Graham Potter has come through. He's done all the coaching badges. He's been heavily in fact, I think he's probably possibly the most qualified coach in the Premier League at the moment in terms of badges and everything. Come through St George's Park. He went and learned his trade in Sweden at Osterlands, had a stint at Swansea, and he's just trying to embed his style on Brighton now. He's a tactician, so he's got a philosophy. People say, he likes playing the passing football. That does, but he's extremely tactical. So at the moment, he's trying to turn Brighton into a team that play with 3 at the back, but also he received high praise last season from Leeds manager Marco Bielsa, who said it was very, very hard to tactically counteract what he was doing because he had 3 different systems and the players all seemed to know exactly what they're doing in whatever system they employed during the game. So clearly a deep thinker, mate.
Where have you been reading this, Gonzo?
All over the place. I told you when we did the cup of tea. I told you, or was it the Premier League preview? I told you about this guy. I told you about the FA Academy and him bringing it through. And I think the first time I became aware of it was what's his name? The Irish Colin Murray. Colin Murray was talking about him quite a lot on the radio. So went and had a read, went and had a look, and that's why I spoke about him in the last show. Since then, obviously they won their last game quite handsomely, so I've had another look again and done a bit more research.
Mike, what's your thoughts on Brighton?
Pretty much what Gonzo was saying. It's very interesting. Graham Potter last season at Swansea, he had more than 3 systems. He seemed to change it every week. From what I was seeing last week, Swansea fans seemed really pleased with him because no matter what shape he chose, it would be 3 at the back one week, a flat 4 at the next, or what he chose 2 up front some weeks, and then 4-2-3-1 the next. It always had a very passing and very possession-based philosophy, which they really liked at Swansea. Whether he can cut it in the Premier League, this is his golden chance to shine. Very different from what Hughton was doing, but with more or less the same players. Now, we've seen that fail at other clubs quite miserably. At this one, it'll be really interesting to see what happens.
Mike, what was your thoughts when they sacked Chris Hughton earlier in the summer? Obviously, he kept Brighton up, and a lot of neutral fans thought that was a successful thing in its own right. What was your thoughts on sacking Hughton? Was it the right thing to do?
It probably was. I thought that they got a bit stuck in a rut, and a little bit like we did with Allardyce. If you remember, he brought an initial success, and then that success started to seep down. We started getting weaker and weaker each season because he was predictable, and Hughton was predictable. They stayed up by the skin of their teeth last season, largely because they were just so, but everyone knew exactly how they were going to play. So for them to stay up this season, they did need to make a change. And it is a shame because he did so well getting them up. But from there, I don't think he really developed the team. He also spent a lot of money on some pretty good players who he then didn't play. It just seemed really odd with, I know we're going to talk about the players soon, but, Johanna Bash, however you say it, and Andone in particular stuck with me as players who were really good that he never played.
See, I'm very much a fan of sacking Hughton, if that makes sense. I thought they did the right thing. Why should Brighton have to accept finishing 17th every season? Why should they have to accept poor football in order to stay in the Premier League? you have to aspire to more, especially as a football fan. You want to see goals, you want to see attacking football, you want excitement. I don't think Hughton was giving them that. He was giving them safety. That was it. I think Hughton is in the same category as the likes of Neil Warnock and Roy Hodgson for me, that they'll do okay, but that's it. If you want a bit more, then you're going to have to take a gamble. And they've done that with this manager. I don't know that much about him. I haven't read up on him like Gonzo. I haven't done my homework on him like Gonzo has. But last weekend, the surprise result for me was the Brighton result. I didn't think they'd pull off a 3-0 at Watford. I mean, the funniest stat out the weekend was Brighton had the least amount of shots last weekend, along with West Ham. But we got beat 5-0. They won 3-0. But that just shows how clinical you can be. I don't mind Brighton, but I think this is their 7th season in the Premier League now. If you've been in the Premier League that long, you've had that much income and stuff, you've got to be doing a little bit better than surviving. Because when our team comes up in the Championship, they're looking at Brighton and thinking, if we can stay above them this season, there's a good chance we'll survive. They've got to get away from that. They've got to turn into the Bournemouth, if you like, that. They'll be steady Eddie in the Premier League. They'll be a difficult place to go, and they'll probably be safe. Is Potter the man? I don't know. Gonzo seems convinced, but something I'm actually looking forward to finding out. Not this game, not this weekend, but long term. Gonzo, what's a good season for Brighton?
It will still be to avoid relegation. Spirits will be really high after that result, and it would be very, very easy for them to get carried away. Sort of as Mike alluded to, coming in and using more or less the same players. The last person I can remember really doing something like that, it was a long time ago, it was Glenn Hoddle at Swindon. Then he went on to Chelsea, and he completely changed the way they play with a sweeper, which it looks like, and Potter's looking to do as well. It's very, very hard to change a philosophy. We've seen it fail far more times. We've seen it succeed. So still to avoid relegation, if they can, then he does have a chance to build. Because when you're changing the emphasis, when you're changing the training, when you're changing the tactics, one swallow doesn't make a summer. And every additional season you can get on the training field, it is certainly going to help. So I think still survival.
Mike, who's the danger players for Brighton, do you think, as a West Ham fan? You're looking at that team. Who would you pick out, or who would you not mind seeing at West Ham?
I don't know really if I would say there's any of them I would like to see play for West Ham per se, but I do think they've got a couple of great defenders in Dunk and Duffy. Maybe Dunk would be good. I don't know though. He just really play the Pellegrini way of defending. But they are really good. I think they're really good at back. I like the goalkeeper as well, Ryan. He's a really good shot stopper. They're pretty solid at the back. I quite like the guy who played as a wing back, Montoya. Last week, he's a good player as well. Up front, I've always liked Andone. The few times that Chris Hughton let him off the leash and let him run around the park, he looked like a player. And yet, he hardly ever got a kick. When he did, he generally scored a goal. I think he looks like a good player. Maupay, they've just bought, obviously, from Brentford. We don't know. Obviously, he took his goal well, didn't he, against Watford? Went around the goalkeeper. But time will tell whether he's going to make that adapt and play well in the Premier League. So they're the main players I point out. It's a huge chasm for them, I think, in midfield, where I think their main problem. People like Stevens and Proper are a bit nah. Do you know what I mean? As midfielders. And I think, that's where we can really dominate. But they've got a few good players there.
Gonzo, what about yourself? Who's the players that you most admire from Brighton?
Solly March, the other wing back, the other side from Montoya, we're going to have to watch out for. Really good delivery, and particularly in that wing back system. Dunk's a huge player for him. He's basically trying to reinvent him. I mentioned Glenn Hoddle at Swindon. He's trying to make Dunk that player, which I think particularly him and Duffy, they were seen as bully boys under Hughton, but I think he's going to look to try and bring his creative side out of him. So he's going to be sort of strolling into midfield. The whole emphasis that Potter seems to want to implement is outnumbering the opposition, constantly trying to make 2-on-1s, and sorry, Dunk's a massive part of that. Murray, if he starts, is going to be a very, very dangerous player. And also, I mean, Mike alluded to Proper as somebody that wasn't great, and I would agree last season, but the reports that I've heard is he seems to be somebody that the manager's been really impressed with, because he's sort of bought into the philosophy, and there will be times when Montoya sort of kicks inside when proper will actually try and drift wide, because they'll be trying to drag our defence out of position. It's going to be a really interesting tactical battle for Pellegrini, really. But yeah, certainly a number of players who look like they may well do all right under the system. But I would agree with Mike. I'm not sure any of them are better than the players that we've got.
It's Pascal Gross for me. I've admired him since he came to Premier League, and I was disappointed last year, actually. I thought he had a poor season. He had a big injury and stuff, but he didn't quite get there. I only seen the Brighton game on Match of the Day, but he was involved in a lot of the stuff Brighton were doing going forward, and it's good to see. I like footballers like that. I think he's sort of got a little bit of freedom by the looks of it under Potter, because he's got enough people behind him. Be interesting to see if he gives Webster a start, because he's got a big reputation coming up in the Championship. The Bristol City fans think that he's good enough to go on and play for a top 6 club in the near future and stuff. And it would make sense if I did wonder why he brought him in for big money, but I didn't know he's going to be playing 3 at the back, so that makes sense now. I'd imagine his plan is Dunk, Duffy, then Webster at the back long term. And also Trossard, he spent a lot of money on in summer, but he didn't get on last weekend. What impressed me most about last weekend, actually, is that we're 1-0 up, and he took off both strikers and put 2 strikers on. I thought, that's not something Hughton would do. Hughton would have put in midfielders, reinforcements in there, and tried to see out the 1-0, but he didn't. He put fresh legs up front, and they both got a goal and stuff. But anyway, enough about Brighton. Let's talk about West Ham, but before we do that, a couple of stats for you. Brighton, unsurprisingly, have beaten West Ham more than anyone else in the Premier League. This is their favourite team to play. And then Pellegrini has only failed to defeat 3 teams in the Premier League ever. Man City, Wolves, and Brighton. Mike, let's start with yourself. The team news, no Mark Noble. Mark Noble's not back. Pellegrini today in his press conference has said that Anderson and Sebastian Aller is a doubt. Bit of a worry, but we'll get on to that in a minute. But Mike, at the left back, Cresswell came in for a heavy criticism against Manchester City. Would you like to see a change at the left back position?
Well, injuries aside, I think that's the only position that I would change for me. I would like to see a more attacking option there, and I'd like to see Masuaku play, assuming he's fit. Cresswell, yeah, he didn't have a cover himself with glory against Manchester City, but then who did? Do you know what I mean? In the second half, especially. I don't think anyone had a particularly brilliant game. But Haller was great in the first half, but never mind, we'll talk about that. I thought he was poor. His passing and his crossing were very poor as well. He didn't really get forward in the way I'd like to see him do. And I'd like to see Masuaku in.
What about yourself, Gonzo? We've lost Gonzo's visual, but I'm sure his audio's still here. Gonzo, what about left back? What would you like to see done there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, keep going.
Well, that's the main thing.
Well,
Masuaku for me. I know. The ladies will be absolutely distraught that my picture has disappeared from the screen, Gio. But there you go. These things happen. It's got to be Masuaku, really. It has to be. I would not be surprised. I said it after the last game if he changed both fullbacks for this one, and something's got to give. You can't have a 5-0 loss, albeit to probably the best team in Europe, but you can't get a 5-0 loss and not make defensive changes.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Gonzo, against Man City, you were sort of hoping to see the 2 in centre mid. Have you changed your mind heading into this one, or would you like to see Pellegrini stick with his 2 in centre midfield?
Well, I'd like to see him stick with what he wants to do. I don't see it as a 2 in centre midfield. I have to say, I do think a number 10 drops and makes a 3, if that makes sense. So I do think there is scope within that system to make it a 3, and we're going to need to against these guys. But I don't think it's no good throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's no good having this philosophy, picking this team and having an attacking team, and then just because you lose to a superstar team like Man City, throwing the tactics out. This was always going to be, for me, the first game of the season. This is when his philosophy starts. So he's got to really stick exactly with what he's doing. And regardless of all the lovely things we've said about Brighton and Potter, he has to now believe that his system, although it might not be good enough to beat Man City, can certainly beat Brighton.
Mike, what about yourself? Is 3-2 open? Brighton, we've just alluded to, played 5 at the back, therefore they had 3 in centre midfield. Would it be naive to go 2 against them, or are you edging with Gonzo? Would you like to see us stick with our philosophy in go with what we believe in.
Oh, absolutely. I think he's worked on getting this team together and this shape for the whole of pre-season. As soon as he got the first team together, I would personally really like to see him stick with that shape now that we're back and the season started. We're playing someone it's winnable against. I know we lost finally against Man City. That was kind of always going to happen, though, to a point. We all kind of knew we were going to get thumped by City, maybe not 5-0, but we knew it was coming. But this is a winnable game. Sorry, Brighton fans who might be watching it. And I see no reason to change that. I mean, everyone says he's playing 4-2-3-1. He's playing 4-1-4-1, isn't he? With that second four, all attacking midfielders largely, and just Rice in front of the back four. It's a very continental system that we'll have to see how far it goes. But I don't see him changing it, and I wouldn't want him to change it. We haven't really got the personnel to change it anyway.
I would like to see us play three in the centre midfield. I think, I did the tactics video with Charlie and I said it's practically suicide playing two in there. It was against Man City, but, Declan Rice has got far too much to do with just Jack Wilshere. Jack Wilshere is not disciplined enough to sit alongside him and keep his position. He likes to get forward, and you've got to appreciate that. But whenever he goes forward, you're leaving just one in there. Now, while Potter might be trying to change the way Brighton play, make no mistakes, Proper and Stevens are nitty-gritty midfielders. They don't mind getting a foot in. They will get a foot in. Gonzo, you're back on the screen. Stay where you are. So they will make it difficult in there. So we've only got two in there. They will bully us in the middle of the park. And if we've got Masuaku left back, who needs a little bit of help defensively, will get forward and will need to be covered out on the left, etc. I think we need someone in there. Now the question is, do you put Robert Snodgrass in there, the hard worker, or do you drop someone like Lanzini in there? So you try and keep the flair on the pitch, but you just drop someone else in. And I can't help but when you watch Man City, the way they've got David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne are two players who are not, known for their tackle. They're not known for their work rate. They do it and they go under the radar when they're doing it, but it just goes to show that you can have players in there that have got a little bit of technical ability about them. They don't have to be workhorses, and I just think if we go two against Brighton, I think we'll struggle. Now we're going to jump up to the striker position here, and on the hypothetical assumption, now Pellegrini could be playing the game here. He could be playing mind games by Aller, but Gonzo, if Pellegrini isn't and Aller does miss out, what would you like to see done up front?
I'd probably like to see Antonio in there for this one, because I don't think Potter's going to be able to change the DNA overnight. And as much as he's trying to get Dunk to play out from the back, you still got a couple of resolute centre halves in there who really know to defend and are strong. And I just think they are going to have Chicharito for breakfast, not literally, obviously, and Ajeti looks like a poacher, looks like a finisher, but again, I'm not sure this is the game for him. I think that obviously Antonio is the worst finisher out of the three, but I think he would probably make the afternoon more uncomfortable, and then you bring one of those guys on as a substitute afterwards.
Mike, we've done the back four. How would you like to see the midfield and attack set up today? On Saturday against Brighton.
I'm assuming then that Haller's not fit. Going back to your question, I agree with Gonzo. I put Antonio there. It's more of a physical presence, especially against that defence. I would still go with Rice and Wilshere, assuming Wilshere's fit, and I would go with if Haller's fit, then play him. I would probably play Antonio and Lanzini and Anderson and Haller. If Haller's not fit, I'll put Antonio in there, and I'd bring in probably Yarmolenko if he's available. I'd like to see him. I don't know what his fitness level's like, but I'd like to see him come on, or Fornals. But Fornals looks a little bit lightweight against City, didn't he? But on the other hand, he can drop in deeper and make it more of a 3 if you were to play him in the 10 place anyway. But if they're all fit, I'd go with pretty much the same team that started against City, apart from Masuaku.
Gonzo, you're nodding away there. Would you also be bringing in Yarmolenko? How does the rest of your team shape up?
Well, I'd play exactly the same, but obviously this is predicated upon the fact that the news about the injuries, as you suggested, might be true. So it would be Yarmolenko that I would drift in to take Antonio's place if Antonio was playing up top. Aside from that, I'd be keeping. If everybody's fit, I would play exactly the same team for the reason that I said you don't throw the baby out with a bathwater. So which would obviously mean keeping Fornals on the bench. I think it was a bit of a culture shock for him. He seemed well off the pace, and I think he's a very talented player. I think he's going to come good. I think he'll do some very, very good things. But some players come from other leagues and hit the ground running. Some of them take a while to acclimatise, and I think the hustle and the bustle and the fitness. And even though we were playing a footballing team in City, I think the way everyone was running off him and running around him, he looked like a rabbit caught in the headlights. So I'd certainly draft Yarmolenko in.
Interesting. I've always liked Antonio up front because of as Gonzo's phrase there, hustle and bustle. I've always liked that about him, the argy-bargy. But when you watch Haller against Man City, you notice the difference between a makeshift striker and a proper striker. Haller's touches and stuff, it's just not something Antonio can do. I'd still play Antonio, just on the right wing. But if Haller wasn't playing, I'd risk it and go a Jetty. Now, have I ever seen a Jetty play? No, but I'll tell you what I have seen. Hernandez play in this system, and it doesn't work. So I do not want to see. I'm not keen on seeing Javier Hernandez up front against Brighton in the system that we play, because we know it doesn't work. So instead of trying something for the 30th time and hoping it's going to work this one time, let's just try something different. I would bring Lanzini back into Wiltshire, a much deeper role. I think Lanzini works harder than people give him credit for. And I would bring in Fornals though, and I'd be dropping Anderson even if he is fit enough, because while Fornals didn't impress Gonzo against Man City, Anderson didn't impress me against Man City. And I think that you've got to have some changes. There's got to be something done. So that would be my two. Masuaku and Fornals would come in. Michael, are you confident for this one?
Reasonably. I think we'll give them a game at least. I don't think it'll be easy though. I think they'll be set up. They'll be well drilled. They'll more or less know what we're going to do, and I think it'll be a hard game. But I am still reasonably confident.
Gonzo, what about yourself? Are you feeling confident?
I'm confident if Antonio and Anderson play, because for everything that they did, and they did look really, really good, Brighton. But we could hurt them with pace. They can be hurt with pace, and they can be hurt on the counter. They're going to have a lot of possession, which means we're going to break quickly. Our three fastest players are obviously Antonio, Anderson, and Masuaku. I think if they feature, then obviously Fredericks as well, but I just don't think he can feature after the game. So we're going to need some pace on the counter. So I think if that happens, I am very confident, and I probably didn't say. We just sort of discussed it as if those players are injured. I don't think they are. So yeah, I am actually. I'm confident in this one.
I'm a bit of both. I was more confident last Friday about this game than I was Sunday night after the Man City game, if that makes sense, and also seeing Brighton's result. Those two things don't really help. But looking at the way they set up, we have to get down the sides on this one. They're playing full-backs. They're packing the middle of the pitch out, so the space is down the sides. We've got to get Fredericks and Masuaku forward. We've got to get whoever's out wide, Antonio and Anderson or whatever, they've got to be tucking in close to Haller and trying to put Haller, Anderson, Antonio up against their three centre-backs. Make it 3-3 in the middle of the pitch and let your full-backs provide the way. Again, I only go by match of the day, but Solly March to me is not a left wing-back. He's a wide midfielder, and he's been put there because he's left-footed, and he's a grafter. He works hard. He does his piece out there. It's a bit like putting Antonio out there to an extent, a right wing-back. But there was a couple of times Watford were unlucky not to score going by the highlights, and Solly March was defensively naive on a couple of times. He was trying to shield the ball out, and the Watford players just ran round him and got the ball. And you do think if we get someone up against him, they've got to test him. Montoya's a proper right wing back. He's got Duffy behind him, who's old school right back. Their left side, if they play the same team, their left side's the weak side in my opinion. That's where we've got to get our right side bang on and take advantage of it. Now, with all that said, it's time to put their necks on the line. We all predicted a defeat last week, and we were all unfortunately correct with the result. Mike, would you care to kick us off tonight, please?
I think we will win 2-1.
Gonzo?
Yeah, I think it's crucial. They're going to look to outnumber us in midfield, but you know what? We can outnumber them wide. And I think we will do, and I think we're going to win 3-1.
I'm going to go with Mike. I think it'll be 2-1 as well. So there you go. Last weekend we predicted 3 losses, but this weekend we're predicting 3 wins. That's been Mike. That's been Gonzo for 2/3 of the show. You've seen him, and I've been Joe. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Talk a Good Game as we're looking ahead to the Brighton against West Ham United game. Drop a like on the video, subscribe if you're new to this channel, and we'll catch you on Saturday after the game.